All right, on this lesson, we're gonna talk about don't fighting the float, or don't fight the float. What do I mean by that? Well, when we're running and moving from position to position on a stress fire course, right, we're unsupported when we're ready to shoot. We're standing unsupported. We aren't robots, folks. We can't hold and just stop steady on a dime. We're human beings. We're gonna move, and your optic's gonna move. So that's what I'm talking about. Don't fight the float. If you have an optic, or even using your front sight post if you don't have an optic, that dot or even that front sight post will float. It's gonna go 8 different directions, and it is. And he's over-exaggerating, of course, here, but essentially that's what will happen. And if you've ever shot unsupported, you've seen that, especially when you're fatigued. All right, so when he does that, what I want him to concentrate on is that he's just watching the float and let it go. He's watching the dot and he's just letting it go back and forth. And then once that dot is where he wants that bullet to go, he presses the trigger. He doesn't jerk it, he doesn't flinch, he just presses the trigger. All right. What I equate it to, and I use this example in my courses, if you've ever seen Star Wars, I know a lot of you all have seen Star Wars, you got to. Well, whenever that TIE fighter was starting to shoot at that X-Wing, yes, I do know what those are. I told you I'm a geek. You watch the TIE fighter go back and forth, and then once it gets into the position that the X-Wing wants to shoot it, it just goes, and it just stays steady. That's essentially what you're doing with your dot. You're watching it just go back and forth. And when that red dot is where you want that bullet to go, you press the trigger. If you try to fight the float and stop it, that's when you get more fatigued. That's when you start to shake more and the float actually gets worse. So it's just staying relaxed and calm. So come on up. Just stay relaxed and calm. And when that dot or that front sight is where you want that bullet to go, you just easily press the trigger. You let it reset, you don't fight the float, and then you let the float go again, and you press the trigger for your second shot. Well, that essentially is what don't fighting the float is, and it's very, very easy to figure out and fix once you know it's going to happen, right? But it's something that you do need to practice on at the range, and you need to practice on it at various distances. Well, let's go get started with this demonstration. Jeremy will go ahead and show this don't fighting the float, and we'll move on to the next lesson after this one. All right, and what we want you to do is come to that high carry position. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna run to the 10, engage 2 shots, and run to the 5, 2 shots. All right, buddy, stand by. And the command, we're gonna use the command of threat to move, okay?
Roger that.
Stand by. Threat. Good. All right, 2 shots. All right, high, good job. Good job keeping your weapons on safe. All right. You're good. All right, clear it. Are we safe?
Safe.
All right.
Weapon on safe.
Let's go ahead. Weapons on safe. Good job. Well, as you saw Jeremy do with this optic here, with the Zeotech, is that he didn't fight the float. He watched it. He worked with that dot. He let it do what it was going to do. And then when the dot was where he wanted the bullet to go, he pressed the trigger. So that's it really for don't fight in the float. It's something you need to practice. You need to recognize and practice at the range all the time, and preferably from a standing unsupported position. That's when you really can see it. But it will help you become a more accurate shooter if you understand that that dot is not going to stop. It's going to keep moving. This is how it is. Well, that's the end of this lesson. Let's move on to the final lesson.